So next up, podcast listeners, why did Amazon cancel Justice Thomas? Can you believe that? So Amazon has actually canceled Justice Thomas. And in the Wall Street Journal opinion section, Jason Riley does a great job and he writes a terrific opinion piece. I just want to read a small part of this so that you can understand the setup. So now that another February has come and gone, perhaps Amazon will revert to offering customers a broader and more variegated view of Black history. Early last month, Amazon deleted a documentary film about Justice Clarence Thomas from its popular streaming service. Titled Created Equal, Clarence Thomas, in his own words, and called from the more than 30 hours of interviews with its subject, the film recounts Justice Thomas's rise from poverty in segregated Georgia to Yale Law School and eventually to the Supreme Court. Along the way, viewers learn that the justice's views on race, religion, politics, and the role of the judiciary. The documentary began airing on PBS in May 2020 and streaming on Amazon in October, but it was taken down by Amazon on February the 8th during Black History Month, according to the director, Michael Pack, and he has never been told why. Our distributor, who's the one who made the deal with Amazon, has repeatedly asked Amazon for an explanation, but they haven't given any, Mr. Pack told me by phone that last week. They have the right to pull anything from their site, and they don't have to give it an explanation. So it's not a contract violation, technically, but many people have complained, and they haven't put it back up. And so Amazon clearly has an axe to grind against people who are conservative. We all know that. That's not a surprise because we know what they've done to Parler, right? We've seen that. But during Black History Month, it's shocking that Amazon has decided to try to cancel Justice Thomas on the Supreme Court, the only Black justice on the Supreme Court. Why isn't the left calling racism, right? Because that's exactly what they would do if anyone else other than Amazon did that. Why aren't they even talking about free speech, the left? Because they don't care about free speech anymore, ladies and gentlemen. We know this. We know this, and this is proof, right? It's not about how you look anymore in the left. It's about how you think. You've got to think the right way. And Chief Justice Thomas doesn't think the right way. So Bill Maher, the comedian, speaks about cancel culture and the craziness of the cancel culture that's just going on across the United States. This is a recent monologue that he just had. We're going to play a series of clips on this just because it goes to this segment. Why did Amazon cancel Justice Thomas? And we have the first clip up from Bill Maher, and here it is.
And finally, new rule, liberals need a stand your ground law for cancel culture, so that when the woke mob comes after you for some ridiculous offense, you'll stand your ground. Stop apologizing, because I can't keep up anymore with who's on the shit list. Now, lately, Republicans have been trying to appropriate the term cancel culture to describe what happens to them when they get a just comeuppance for actual crimes. And this muddying the water is unfortunate because cancel culture is real, it's insane, and it's growing exponentially, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you.
Of course it's coming to a neighborhood near you. And of course that's Bill Maher. We have a couple of other clips from him as well. But he sets up his monologue, and it's like, cancel culture is out of control. It's coming to a neighborhood near you. It already has, right? Amazon has already canceled the only Black justice on the United States Supreme Court. And we're going to give many other examples, and you know what many of them are, right? Dr. Seuss, right? They want to cancel Dr. Seuss. And of course, the left is saying, well, we don't actually want to cancel Dr. Seuss. We want to cancel some of Dr. Seuss's books. But there are others on the left that are like, well, we should just cancel Dr. Seuss altogether. Because if he wrote a couple of bad books, according to the left that is, then, we may want to just get rid of all of the books because that means all of Dr. Seuss's life is bad. It's not good. We have to just cancel him. So here's Bill Maher giving an example, a specific example of the cancel culture. And we have that clip.
Take Mr. Emmanuel Cafferty. He was a San Diego gas and electric worker, but he got fired because someone reported him making a white supremacist hand gesture outside the window of his truck. But he's not a white supremacist, he's Latino. And he wasn't making a hand gesture, he was probably just flicking a booger.
And of course, if you didn't have a chance to see this, if you're watching this, you have a chance to see this gentleman. He's Latino, he's in his truck, and he's making a hand gesture, and it could very well have been a cigarette in his hand. He was flicking a cigarette. Of course, Bill Maher says maybe he was flicking a booger. Obviously, it's all about humor with Bill Maher, which is good because we do need to learn to laugh at ourselves, including elected officials especially, and certainly the left, which is incapable of laughing at itself, which I think really is Bill Maher's central theme. But this gentleman is actually nothing. He's a guy in a truck, and his hand is a certain way, and he's Latino. He's clearly not doing anything wrong. So you can't see that, of course, from listening to the podcast, but it's just classic, right? I see something that you did, and I'm going to interpret what you did, and I'm going to interpret in such a way that it's going to define your entire life and your entire being. And that means that you as an individual must be destroyed because I am much more virtuous than you. That is modern America. So Bill Maher says, well, many Americans are even afraid to share their opinions. Folks, if there were ever a central theme of this segment, why did Amazon cancel Justice Thomas? Why? If there were ever a central theme, this would be it, as Bill Maher talks about so many Americans who are so afraid to just speak openly. Here's the clip.
And 62% of Americans say they have opinions they're afraid to share. 80% of Americans, young, old, rich, poor, conservative, liberal, white, minority, all hate the current atmosphere of hypersensitivity. Yeah, everybody hates it, and no one stands up to it. Because it's always the safe thing to swallow what you really think and just join the mob.
Well, that's because you're afraid of getting fired from your job, right? I mean, if you were to post something on Facebook, or if you were to write an opinion piece and submit it to a newspaper, such as an online newspaper or even a print newspaper, doesn't matter, and your employer saw that, and it wasn't the correct way of thinking, at least according to your employer, and it had nothing to do with your employee, that employer is going to fire you. And that's why people are terrified. 62% of Americans are afraid. This is Cato Institute information that Bill Maher is using. 62% are afraid of even talking openly about what they think about anything, by the way, not just what they think about politics, anything, because of the nutty behavior of the left. And they have lost their minds. Proof be told, Lori Lightfoot is the mayor of Chicago. And here is an article from 5 Chicago, Channel 5. After continued debate over whether to remove monuments and art throughout Chicago, imagine that, art and monuments, particularly those depicting former presidents Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said Wednesday that one thing will not change. During a press conference, Lightfoot was asked about her thoughts on the notion that Chicago statues of Lincoln and Washington might be problematic. And I'm going to quote her. She says, well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, Lightfoot said. I think what the Monuments and Murals Committee did was identify those statues and murals and other historical markers that are worthy of conversation. And I think they are worthy of conversation. Let's be clear. We're in the land of Lincoln, and that's not going to change. So kind of a double speak there from Lori Lightfoot. It's like, well, this is the land of Lincoln. Of course, that is the motto of the state of Illinois, the land of Lincoln. But now you have, of course, Lori Lightfoot saying, we need to have a conversation, but this is the land of Lincoln, but maybe we should do something. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, taking down art, right? It's the left that always pushed the limits on art throughout really much of the 20th century. They were pushing the limits on art. And typically in the 20th century, it was the right who said, that's going too far. I don't want that art to be put up in public. I don't want that art to be hung in someone's home, even though it's their private home. And now the left is triggered by art in the 21st century. They're triggered. They're triggered by statues, which themselves are works of art, but also art that may be outside, painted on the side of a building. Triggered. So they get to decide what you get to see because they know best. And if that isn't enough, we have the latest and greatest, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a congresswoman from Florida. She's basically saying there should be no tribute to Rush Limbaugh. He should be canceled. He passed away, as you know, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz is such an angry person, and I'm going to use Rush Limbaugh's term for her. He used to call her Debbie, what was it? Wasserman, Angry Schultz. I've forgotten. You might be able to help me on this. It was a certain term, what's her mouth or something like that, Schultz. In any event, she is a current congresswoman, and she opposes any flags being flown half-staff in the state of Florida, and she opposes any kind of really memorial service for this gentleman, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, talk show host in American history. I think probably really the greatest talk show host in American history. So obviously I think it's pretty extraordinary, and so should all of us, about what he's accomplished, no matter whether or not you agree with him or not. And so Rush Limbaugh calls her because the producer just corrected me and gave me the information, and I really appreciate that. That is Christopher Hopkins, of course. He's our millennial. And he said it's actually Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. That's what Rush Limbaugh always called her. And I think probably this is her way of getting back, right? I'm going to cancel you. It's like, Debbie, the man's dead. Have some grace in death. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do as human beings. But nonetheless, I think it's a great thing to call her moving forward, to kind of carry that Rush tradition. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. And of course, then we have Dr. Seuss. And the actual Dr. Seuss, who they're trying to cancel completely, or at least some of his books, because they got triggered. So I'm going to read something from Dr. Seuss. This, by the way, is actually from Dr. Seuss. And it reads as follows. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. That's so threatening, isn't it? Isn't that threatening? Oh my gosh. What can happen? And that is, why did Amazon cancel Justice Thomas?